UFC 300 just got a big boost to the card as Charles Oliveira and Armen are going to lock horns for this fight. And according to UFC President Dana White, this is a number one contenders fight, meaning the winner of this should fight for the lightweight title after this matchup. I love this type of matchmaking. We start there first. I think this is the exact type of fight the UFC should be looking to target on UFC 300. I do not want to see gimmick fights. I don't want to see fighters come out of retirement and fight just because it's the 300th event for the UFC, or 300th pay-per-view, I should say, for the UFC. I want to see more fights like this. And to me, the UFC hit this one out of the park as far as the matchmaking. And I think optically it makes a lot of sense, right? Islam, we found out yesterday as well, sidelined with an injury, going to be out until after the summer. This way, Charles and Armen can keep active. I think it makes sense. They both have losses to Islam Makhachev. Charles losing in dominant fashion to Islam a few years ago. I had said this before that I wanted Charles to get 2 wins before he got another shot at Islam. I know he had the title defenses as lightweight champion, but the way he lost to Islam with how one-sided that fight was, I would rather see Charles take 2 fights. He was supposed to get the rematch with Islam in Abu Dhabi late last year. He suffers a cut. He's out of the fight. To me, this was maybe a sign that, he needed one more. So we are going to get that fight. It's going to be against Armen. And like I said, Armen already has a loss to Islam as well. I think this is a big win for the fans. It's going to be a great matchup. Both guys are, really, really looking good in that division. And then on top of that, you're going to have a clear number one contender here. Now, where does Justin Gaethje fit in this? I don't know. I hear a lot of these conspiracy theories out there, people saying he's going to fight Max Holloway or that he's going to defend the BMF belt. I have not heard that from anyone credible. So I'm just going to assume that, we don't know what's going on yet. I mean, if Gaethje is, in fact, not going to be getting that next title shot, then I don't know what he does. I don't know which direction they go as far as what they do with Gaethje's career here. But that's sort of the big question coming out of this. Where does Justin Gaethje go? Or does Gaethje get the shot at Islam and the winner of this waits for the winner of Gaethje Islam? I don't know. We're going to have to see how this all pans out. But just wanted to first mention that I do like the matchmaking here, and I want to see more of this for UFC 300 instead of those types of gimmick fights. And I think it'll be a good test here, right? Because for Oliveira, if you can't beat Armen Yukin, you're not going to beat Islam Makhachev. So I think it's a good test for Charles in that way. He made quick work. I mean, they both made quick work of Beneil Dariush, right? So I think this is a good way to really see how these 2 fighters will look, potentially with the winner of this fight fighting the lightweight champion after this. So that makes a lot of sense. Let's do a quick tail of the tape here because I do think it's important to kind of look at the optics here. And I will do a full in-depth breakdown of this fight as we get closer to fight time between these two. So you can see there, Do Bronx 34-9, Armen Yukin 21-3. 34 years old to 27, so a bit of an age gap there. 5'10" to 5'7", so Oliveira going to be a bit taller. 74-inch reach to 72.5, so Oliveira with a slight height and reach advantage in this fight. Armen a lot younger. Let's look at their body of work here with their last few matchups. So Oliveira, like I said, disappointing loss to Islam, bounces back in a big way in Vancouver at UFC 289, getting the first round finish over Beneil Dariush. So that was a great win. But again, it was only 1 round at Charles. Like, we need to see a little bit more. And you look at what he had done prior to that, finishes over Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje, all very, very, very good wins for Charles Oliveira as lightweight champion. I think he can take it to another level, fighting a very tricky fighter here in Armen Yukin. Because here's the thing with Armen, right? He's got 3 losses. You look down here, he's only been knocked out 1 time. And he's lost 2 decisions. So those are the other fights here. If you look at his actual knockout losses in his second pro fight in 30 seconds. So really, we're talking about a guy who's extremely durable. Even Islam in his fight against Armen was not able to finish him. I know there's some optics there with the fight being on short notice, but still, I think it speaks volumes that Armen was able to go to the distance with Islam Makhachev on short notice. And he's got some good wins, right? Like, if you look at some of the stoppage wins, like Yagos finished Joel Alvarez. I mean, that was a turning point fight. That's what got him the fight with Gamrot. I thought he beat Gamrot. I thought that was a very close fight, but I think that should have gone to Armen back then. Ismagulov, good win. Finished Joaquim Silva. Kind of a weird situation there, right? He was training at ATT while Silva was there as well. Everyone fixated on the fact that Silva, cracked Armen and, maybe looked a little wobbly there, but he still ended up getting the finish. And then he goes out there and finishes Dariush in this fight, where I did see a lot of people on the side of Dariush going in, making a statement, finishing Dariush right there. So great win. So I think it makes sense, right? Like, it keeps both of these fighters busy. The fans get a great fight at UFC 300. And I think, again, I think this is such a 50-50 fight. Like, I mean, even just looking right now at the fan voting, you got Oliveira at 64%. You got Yukin at 36%. I think this number will be even closer. And I think when the odds eventually come out, I do see this being a pretty close fight on paper because while Oliveira has certainly proven more, we know he has some defensive deficiencies that maybe Armen can exploit. Armen's younger. You could argue maybe he's a bit faster. There's a lot of things that go into this fight, and this is one I absolutely cannot wait to preview. But I think this is it. This is the rightful number one contender here, whether Gaethje gets the next shot or not, just with the fact that, you know, especially in Armen's case, like he's been trying to get an opponent, nobody will fight him. And then, you know, he has to fight a Joaquim Silva just to keep active. He fights a dangerous guy in Ismagulov just to, you know, have the activity going on. I mean, he's been basically fighting beneath him because there's no one available to fight him. He mentioned how other fighters were turning him down. So glad to see that Oliveira stepped up. And also, you know, I see a lot of criticisms from people talking about Oliveira and all these different things. You got to give Oliveira credit here too. I mean, he could have justified a title shot here. He really could have, right? Being a former champion, having a number of title defenses, that does weigh a lot in the overall grand scheme of things. But the fact that he's willing to fight Armen and really test himself, I think speaks volumes to the type of person Oliveira is too. So again, we're going to get a really good fight here. This may go down as the best fight on UFC 300. I mean, the way things are looking and how creative the UFC is going to have to be to just make this 300 card a thing. And I'm going to have a video on this a little bit later, just talking about how concerned I am about how 300 is going to look. This is the type of fight that I think is really going to, you know, really add to the card. And if we're looking at UFC 300 right now, this by far is the best fight on the card. Look, I really like Yuri and Rakic. That's a fun fight too. Cater and Sterling's kind of a fun matchup, with Sterling making his debut at 45. You got Bo Nickel, Cody Brundage, which, I mean, I think that's just a fight to really showcase Bo Nickel. And we're still waiting on the confirmation on Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad. But this to me is like the people's main event right here. Really good fight. This really should be 5 rounds. That's one thing that it doesn't, I mean, by the looks of it here, it didn't say anything about it being 5 rounds. They got to do 5-round fights for number one contender fights, in my opinion. They're even doing Poirier and Saint Denis as a 5-round fight as well for this one. By the looks of it right now, at the time we're recording this, it does seem like it's only three rounds, which is a little bit disappointing there. You would want to see 2 more rounds out of this fight because yeah, again, we're talking about 2 guys that are extremely high level when it comes to what they can put together. And yeah, just really excited for this fight. And it's tough too, because these are 2 of my favorite fighters to watch. So someone's got to lose here. But if I have to give a pick right now, and again, I'll do a more in-depth preview of this, I give a slight edge to Oliveira here. You know, I think he had one bad night at the office against Islam. I think outside of that, he's pretty tough to put out, right? Like you look at, I think the evidence we have here with Oliveira is that he's got some really good wins, man. Like you look at it here, like, I mean, again, people like to really nitpick at his resume here, but finishing Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje all at once. I mean, Gaethje finishing him in the first round with what Gaethje has done since that fight, right? If you think about it, Gaethje's, you know, won a couple fights since then. Those are all impressive wins. And for him to do that, and, you know, again, Oliveira is good everywhere. He's good on the ground, good on the feet. But the thing is, Armen's fast. He's tough to take out. It's going to be really interesting. I'm actually curious to see where Armen does his camp this time around. Does he go back to ATT? I would assume he does. Does he go to Thailand? Like, who knows? Who knows where he'll do this camp? But it's going to be very interesting to see how this one comes together. But yeah, early lean right now is to Charles Oliveira. I don't know if he'll finish Armen in this fight. With it being 3 rounds, I could see it go the distance, with Oliveira slightly edging this out. Although saying that, when was the last time Charles Oliveira went the distance? I think it was Ferguson, and that was I think a 5-round fight too, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was a 3-round fight. So I could see something similar happening there, although Oliveira does finish a lot of his fights. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. First off, should this be the fight that they put together, or should have they tried to book Oliveira and Islam? What do you think of that? What do you think of this fight on UFC 300? Do you want to see more matchmaking like this? I do. I want to see high-level guys fight on UFC 300 as opposed to them doing these gimmick fights. And number 3, what do you think happens with Justin Gaethje? Again, I think if I'm Max Holloway, I wait to see what happens with Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski, because if Topuria wins, I could see Holloway maybe getting a shot there. I know people will say, oh, well, Volkanovski, he would probably get an immediate rematch. Not necessarily. What happens if he, you know, gets knocked out again or something? So I think if you're Holloway, regardless, you wait to see what happens there. And maybe Gaethje does fight Islam, and then the winner of this fight fights the winner of that fight. I don't know. We'll have to see how it all unfolds. I wouldn't put it past anything here as far as what the UFC does. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.